Good morning and welcome to Madeira. My name is Caroline and I'm going to be travelling around this stunning island with my other half Andy for the next couple of weeks. This morning we've driven along to Lombada, just inland from Ponta do Sol. That is because we're going to be doing a couple of different Levada walks. One is called Levada Moinho and the other Levada Nova. What's really nice about this hike is that the two of them link up, meaning that instead of having to do a there and back, which is quite normal for most Levadas here, this is in fact a loop. We've been able to park up quite easily outside of the church here in Lombada, as there's plenty of bay parking spaces, all for free. But if you were reliant on public transport, there are several buses that go to the coastal town. It just means that you would have an extra 400 meters of elevation gain. The hike's about 8.5 kilometers in length, and the book that we're following is recommending that we allow at least 3 hours to complete it. We're visiting Madeira in July and it does really heat up during the day. At the time of planning this hike, I didn't realise it, but because we're in such a steep-sided valley, we're on the west side of a hill, it means that it's predominantly in the shade in the morning. So if you too are coming in a hotter time of the year, I'd highly recommend doing this hike in the morning rather than the afternoon, where you're going to be hiking predominantly in direct sunlight. There are some really severe steep drops down the side, and it seems a bit odd because there's parts of this trail where you do have railings for a little bit of security. There's other parts where it's just full of like trees and bushes and what have you, so it helps stop you from feeling too scared. And then there's other parts that don't seem to have any kind of railings, and I'm not entirely sure why they would have parts without it, even though there are quite steep drops down the side. We have, however, just walked past one where quite a few of the posts were taken out, and we were saying no, this can't be like vandalism. And then we looked up onto the hillside and you could see a really big chunk of the earth that had fallen away. I assume that there's been some kind of landslide and a huge rock has taken out about 4 or 5 of the posts. The further into the valley that we're walking, the more dense that the vegetation's become. We've got all of these trees and bushes that are completely overhanging. We're starting to see some new flowers, which we've not seen so far in Madeira.
It's a lizard.
Most of the Levada walks in Madeira involve at least one tunnel. This particular hike has only got the one, and it's short enough that when we entered into it we could see daylight at the other end, but some of them are so long they even go around corners, and therefore I knew that a head torch was very much needed on my packing list. Oh my goodness! Oh wow! Okay, I knew that this waterfall was on this hike, but I had no idea that this was where the tunnel was about to bring us out to. Holy moly, this is stunning! This part of the walks are reminding me just a little bit of when I did the high force waterfall walk and we went to Gibson's Cave, where you could wander behind the waterfall. But this one you're actually forced to have to do it, otherwise you can't continue on the trail. Even in the summer, when I'm assuming there probably isn't quite as much rainfall, you do still very much get wet on your legs and your feet if you're here on a cooler day and you're not wanting to get wet because you're thinking it's not going to dry off very well. You might want some waterproofs or maybe even just like an umbrella to hold on the lower sections of your body. We had quite a bit of time to ourselves where we were able to get some really cool photographs there, and then there were points where we had like a surge of people coming through, like larger groups, and just whilst we were waiting and I was sort of waiting for Andy because he was getting all of the lighting perfectly, I was really taking in that gorge and it was absolutely stunning. You had huge trees just growing out of what seemed like the rock faces, and then you had succulents. If you actually looked up above where the waterfall was coming out, it was absolutely gorgeous, and I think the light has really helped matters. To get from Levada Nova down to Levada Moinho, there's a bit of a discrepancy in height. So there's a whole load of steps that we're having to go down because we started on the higher section, but naturally if you're doing it the other way around, the steps you would have to go up. As we've walked out to that last waterfall, we have been looking down on sections of the Levada that we're going to walk back on. We've also just overshot the staircase really quickly to be able to see the top of another waterfall, and that one takes the water from the Levada Nova to the Levada Moinho. But I've got a feeling it'll be a lot more impressive from the bottom, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to stop and have some lunch at the bottom of that waterfall. Whilst picnic tables were provided on the trail, the best ones had already been taken and those left vacant were in the sun, so we decided to find shade under a nearby tree. We learnt that Madeira Island is home to a second Levada trail, which also goes by the name of Levada Moinho. That's in the far northwest of the island, unlike this one by the southern coast. Whilst Andy's off scrambling up this stream to try and get some great photographs of some trickling waterfalls, I figured now might be a great time for me to explain what the heck a Levada is. If you stumbled across my videos because you're interested in hiking here in Madeira, chances are you probably know what they are, so if you want you can fast forward to the time that I'll put up on the screen. But if you are a regular viewer of mine and you're sat there thinking, what the heck are these Levadas, I will attempt to explain them. Madeira Island has got a northern coast which is very rainy in comparison to the southern coast, which doesn't see anywhere near as much rain. Way back in history, people came up with this idea of digging levadas which would channel water from the north to the south of the island. This would allow farmers' fields and also just for local people who are growing their own fruit and veg in their gardens to receive this water. But the levadas need regular maintenance, so along with the channels of water, there's also footpaths alongside them, not originally designed for hikers like ourselves, but instead for maintenance workers. But it does mean for the major ones that serve a lot of people, us as tourists and us as hikers, we're able to come and use these, and wonderfully, they're completely free for us to access. The Moinho Levada has definitely got a different feel to it. There's been parts that we've hit, and this is one of them, where it's actually had quite a bit of current to it. You can probably hear it, and the one further up just seemed a lot more placid. The one further up seemed to have more of like a concrete path to the very edge of it, whereas this one seems to be like the natural earth path. So I don't know if maybe traditionally this is what they used to be like, whereas newer ones they're putting in the concrete path to the side. The other thing was that we did get into some sections of some like tree areas up on the higher level, but this one seems, I mean, she says as we come out onto this open terrace, but this one definitely seems to be a bit more overgrown in a good way, especially for the afternoon. Predominantly walking in the shade is nice, and it doesn't feel like the steep drop-offs to the side are anywhere near as steep as what the one higher up was. The trees and plants that are growing along this trail are brilliant. There's been so much of the sugarcane that you can see behind me, which I know Madeira grows a lot of, and it seems to also grow wild too. In history, I know it was a huge money maker for the country. And then we've got eucalyptus trees like the one behind me. I do really love the colour of the bark, although I have to confess, we did in our very first flat that we owned in London, we had a communal garden, and the next door neighbours right on the boundary line had a eucalyptus tree, and it caused us no end of problems because they're very like water thirsty, and we just couldn't get anything to grow on that side. But I imagine in a country like this it's no problem. And then this one that we're walking under at the moment is a fig tree, and it's just got figs growing on it, and again completely wild. We're not even in farmer's farmland at the moment. I was geeking out over all of the flora, but to be honest, the fauna's been pretty cool too. And all you can hear is just the rustling of the leaves, both up and down, and then every now and again you'll see a lizard shoot across the pathway. In comparison to the ones that we saw in Funchal, these guys are a lot more wary of humans, and so it's just been that little bit more challenging to capture them on camera. Just as we're finishing off the hike, the clouds have started to roll in over the hills, so it seems like a perfect time to be wrapping it up. It's been stunning from start to end, but one of the things that is probably worth my while mentioning is that there are no facilities of the man-made kind at all along the hiking trail. And when you've got that constant sound of the rushing water, it does start to become problematic. Because you've got cliffs on either side of the hiking trail, it's not even like you can go and find some like bush or tree to be able to go behind. The village that we started from, right next door to the church and where we parked the car, there are some public toilets, and much like the car parking, completely free to access. I did notice that there were a couple of sections on today's pathway where an awful lot of water was coming down off of the cliff face. And so in one section, they built a bridge just ever so slightly away from that water source. And then another one, they built almost like a canopy, like a roof canopy for the water to run off of so that we could walk with the safety and the protection of that roofway. Overall, the Levada walk has been brilliant. It's been predominantly flat. Yes, of course, the tiniest of gradient going up to that first waterfall, but then of course there's been the tiniest of gradient bringing you back. And I can't think of anywhere else in the world where we've had such gorgeous mountainous views, amazing waterfalls, but you've not had to have that really steep incline. So on first impressions, Madeira is seeming like a hiker's paradise, or at least a lazy hiker's paradise.